People don't know that there are homeless cats unless they're behind their apartment building. They are everywhere. They're good at hiding.
Most people have no idea that the problem exists. You know, the average person, if we grab 10 people walking down the sidewalk right there, and you said, you know, the problem of, do you know anything about feral cats and stray cats? Do you know what LA Animal Services does? You know, the average person doesn't know.
The County of Los Angeles and other animal control programs, just in the Los Angeles region alone, are euthanizing tens of thousands of cats a year in order to limit the number of cats in the community. There are ethical issues that are raised with response to that management technique, both for and against using that technique. But what we know as biologists, as we measure cat populations, that level of removal is not significant enough to dramatically change the cat population.
50, 60 years of taking cats off of the streets, and we have the biggest community cat problems we've ever had.
The definition of feral cats has to be understood. Okay, a feral cat is typically one that hasn't had human contact, and if it hasn't had human contact, it will be afraid of humans, it will hide, and it won't meow. If a cat will meow to you when it sees you, because cats don't usually meow to each other, they meow to people. So if a cat meows when it sees you, that probably means the cat is stray and that it's not feral.
Studies that have tried to look at the relative effects of, say, household cats that are outdoors versus feral cat colonies, we find impacts of both types of domestic cats, but generally we think that the impacts of the feral cat colonies are much larger than the effects of household cats.
One of the most important questions that you can ask about the issue of feral cats is the impact not just to the cats themselves, but to the surrounding community of so-called mesopredators, middle-sized mammalian predators that are found in the urban context. And here we have some pretty clear and I think alarming data. When people put out feeding stations for cats, inevitably cats are not the only animals that make use of those feeding locations. Often you have other animals such as raccoons and skunks and foxes that will come in and eat the food as well. What that results in then is an exaggerated density of those animals because they're getting more calories than they normally would in their normal setting, and so that they're breeding more prolifically.
Domestic cats, be that they feral or house cats, can have serious negative effects on bird populations. So, for example, in areas where we have more cats, we have less diversity of birds. This can affect bird populations, but these cats can also affect populations of small mammals, reptiles, amphibians, in addition to the birds. The effects that cats have on wild bird populations, it can be both because they increase mortality, they kill the birds, but they can also have what we call sublethal effects on bird populations, meaning that the cats can change the behavior of the birds without killing them, but in ways that has a negative impact on the birds. So, for example, reduces their parental behavior and reduces their reproductive success. So we know from ecology that when you take or when you lose either diversity or you lose animals, that has impacts on organisms below them in the system. So for birds, removing or losing birds and bird diversity, that could potentially affect insect populations, affect plant populations, these sorts of things.
If it wasn't for birds, the insects would take over the world in about a week. Birds kill insects. And yet cats do eat a lot of birds, but cats eat a lot of rats and a lot of mice. And if it wasn't for the cats, especially the feral cats, we'd be overrun by mice and rats and other small creatures. They've already said in our association here, we've got 100 townhomes where I live, is that the end of the building where there's some of the stray cats are, we have no mice because they have traps for the mice. There's never any mice in it. On the other end where there's no cats and all the cat haters live, they have mice everywhere.
Tragically enough, there was an injunction placed on the city back in, I believe, 2008, 2009, halted all of their spay-neuter for stray, free roaming cats. So unfortunately, since the city can't do it anymore, the population has exploded. Thus, every year, you hear the rescue groups complain about kitten season. Many tiny kittens are put to sleep. So we're just trying to do something about it.
The Hayden Law here in California means that a stray needs to be held for 72 hours for the owner to come back in and try to get their animal back. So after 72 hours, the shelter can do whatever they want to do with that animal, be it kill them, put them up for adoption, send them out to rescue. The only animal that doesn't fall under the Hayden Law, or the 72-hour hold, is underweight underage kittens. If they cannot be given to rescue, the shelter will kill, often right when the animal comes in.
The program in LA County basically is trap, spade or neuter, and release. It's a trap and release program.
I probably started trapping about a year and a half ago. And it's awesome. I mean, you know, it's work, and none of us, I think, is necessarily like thrilled to go out and sit for hours waiting for cats to go in traps. But when you get a cat, especially one that's injured, or, you know, a cat that's in a bad situation where people want to do harm to it, I mean, you feel so good afterwards when you've gotten them. And it's just, it feels great to make a difference for them.
We lived here a year and a half, and we've seen all these kitties again and again and been like, we want to help, like this can't be right, and just have had no way to know what to do.
That's
you know?
why the neighborhood thing is the only way to go.
Yeah.
Because an organization that's in West LA or in the Valley
Right,
somewhere,
exactly.
they can't come fast, you know,
Yeah.
and they don't have the time to talk to neighbors.
Of course, we're only putting out healthy cats. Our cats are vaccinated for rabies, FVRCP, so we don't have the rabies issue. Again, we microchip, we ear tip, we alter them, and we also put flea control on them. If they need any kind of basic medical, such as a dental, or say they have an abscess or skin issues, things like that, we deal with them, fix them up, put them back out.
If the communities in which the cats are living are stable, in other words, the number of cats coming into the community is relatively small, and the ones that are there are permanent members of that community, then a TNR program can be reasonably successful. But it requires capturing all of the cats. If the cat community is subject to lots of immigration and emigration of the cats, then the TNR policies tend not to have the desired impacts. And really, when we talk about the feral cat problem, we're talking about a people problem, because these are animals that are affiliated with human settlement. We brought the cats to these communities. We are also responsible for rational management and ethical interventions for these animals.
And you're always going to have the people that no matter what you say to them, they're always going to have a problem. People are ugly, and they can do really bad things. And it's our whole ideal as far as Stray Cat Alliance is concerned is to keep the cats as safe as we humanly can. I just had a lady come out with a broomstick after me, and when we were returning a cat. So yeah, it's dangerous out there, and it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be.
So in terms of trying to resolve these issues, it's a complicated set of problems or challenges. There have been a number of solutions proposed. Ultimately, I hope we can get to the point where we don't have such large numbers of cats affecting wild populations. And so people who own cats by keeping them indoors more or supervising them when they are outdoors, and doing something about these larger populations of feral cats, for example, such as moving them to sanctuaries where they're enclosed and they can't interact with wildlife, would be potentially a good solution as well.
And cat sanctuaries are an interesting idea. They're essentially a retirement home for cats where they're isolated from the environment and they can live out their lives. They avoid being euthanized. The problem is that the scale of the feral cat problem on a regional or national level is so large that the resources necessary to house hundreds of thousands of cats is a staggering burden to place on a community. The cats that keep getting added to the system are being added because individual cat owners are not taking their responsibilities seriously enough to manage cats properly. That's the ultimate solution as we think about the steps towards reaching that in the future.
If you see a cat, let's take responsibility and fix it. Let's not wait until kittens are dying. Let's stop letting them reproduce on the street or throttled to the shelter where they're euthanized. You can save thousands and thousands of animals from suffering. That's a humane LA to me.